Do you want to just take the worldview and the view of yourself that was handed to you by somebody who was also unhealed? Or do you want to create your own? Do you want to find better? Guys, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be talking about why you perpetuate your own abuse and how you can stop. It's time that you stopped abusing yourself and that you stopped bringing abusive elements into your life based off of the way that you were treated when you were helpless. Oftentimes, especially when we're children, but not always, but just when we're in a situation where we are helpless and we are mistreated, often when that situation ends, we end up attracting the same kinds of things back into our life over and over and over again. Sometimes we're completely unaware of our own role in doing this. The thing about the human brain is that when we hold a certain belief, we actually look for everything to prove it rather than disprove it. This is confirmation bias. We've been taught from prior experience that something is true about ourselves or something is true about life. We continue to seek that out and bring it into our life, ignoring other parts of the world that could change our beliefs about ourselves and other people. You never do the inner work to examine the beliefs that you were given at a certain point in your life that have been dictating how the rest of your life has gone. You may never uncover how you have actually been perpetuating a negative element in your own life. A huge example of this though is our relationship to ourselves. So if you have been abused in the past, you probably experienced a breaking down of your own self-worth, and you were taught that this is what you deserve to be treated as. Even if we can break free and we have a surface level belief that we deserve better, often the beliefs about ourselves that we don't deserve enough are far more deeply rooted than we may necessarily believe. The belief that you deserve enough or you deserve to be treated well is not just a belief on paper. It's a belief that is shown through the way we live our lives and the way that we treat ourselves. So even if you say that you believe this but you don't show it in the way that you act, do you really believe that? Often when an abusive situation or an abusive person is gone from our lives, we actually step in to fill that gap. An example is if you were psychologically abused and spoken to in an abusive manner, you may perpetuate this in your self-talk. Likewise, if you were neglected, you may continue to neglect your own basic needs. You may not eat enough, you may not drink enough water, you may not keep your spaces healthy and clean, you may not surround yourself with good people, you may let yourself end up in unsafe situations. Remnants of these situations often pop up in emotionally intense or stressful times. You may have moved past the obstacles in your day-to-day, but when hard points come up in your life, if you find you're defaulting back to negative self-talk or self-neglect or self-abuse, it shows that there's still work to do. Listen to your own self-talk and recognize where it's not your voice talking, it's the voices of the people who used to say that to you. Recognize this in the moments that you feel guilty for setting reasonable boundaries because you were made out to be an unreasonable or bad person for doing so in the past. Recognize where you feel guilty for caring for yourself or giving to yourself because you were made to feel selfish for it in the past. I think sometimes we can lose our sense of self as well to voices that may have been louder or more powerful than us at the time, and we almost become a host for how other people in our lives thought or treated us. And sometimes it's about distinguishing between what's you and what is just these people living on through you, and rediscovering your sense of self and your connection and relationship to yourself and rebuilding that is how you start to undo these patterns that you have been continuing that were just based on how somebody else treated you. Once you can recognize too that some of your own self-destructive behavior is perpetuating patterns of abuse that you experience from other people, you have to take a degree of accountability. You have to actually look at the way you've been treating yourself and realize that it's not okay, that you are just perpetuating abuse towards yourself, and that abuse is just as wrong as it was from those other people. You don't get an exception. You don't get the green card to treat yourself poorly like it's different from somebody else treating yourself badly. You have to take accountability and self-responsibility and start to make the change in your relationship to yourself. What happens when we don't heal is that we continue to abuse ourselves in the ways that we were abused, and we continue to stay in environments and around people who perpetuate that abuse. Part of healing is stopping that cycle. It's not just getting away from the initial abuse or the initial bad environment. It's about changing the roll-on effect that it has. And if you don't do the internal work to be able to do that, you're just going to keep bringing that back into your life again and again and again. And this is not something you want, because you sacrifice a real relationship to yourself, you sacrifice a real understanding of who you are, and you sacrifice the life that you could have created. All of the negativity that was put onto you was never yours to have, it was never yours to carry, it was never your burden. So stop carrying it, stop keeping it alive, stop perpetuating it. Become conscious of how you treat yourself and the world that you allow to come into your reality, and do better for yourself. It's a process. It takes a lot of time because it takes reflection on how you've been doing this, and then it takes further reflection on where that first came from and why you're continuing to do it. And then it takes a long process of actually putting in the work to stop, which, by the way, is never a simple process, and it's never a linear one. So you have to expect setbacks, and you have to be kind and forgiving to yourself about those setbacks. But it's a lot of work, but it's a process you want to start. It's a process that you want to keep up and continue, because you really have no alternative unless you just want to abandon yourself, which is totally your choice, but not one that's going to serve you, and not one that's going to serve the good of anything else. In fact, it's a lifelong process, learning how to live with ourselves, how to treat ourselves, how to interact with our own life and our own environment. It's lifelong. There's no end point. But do you want to just take the worldview and the view of yourself that was handed to you by somebody who was also unhealed? Or do you want to create your own? Do you want to find better? Because it's all up to you. You're the only one who has the power to do that. Bye guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Also subscribe if you want to. Bye.